Joining us now, the CEO of CVA, Concerned Veterans for America, a veteran himself, been in 2 theaters, knows what's going on, Pete Hegseth. Pete, great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, Pete, I want to get to the Veterans Administration in a minute because nothing is getting done there, so everybody's getting a little frustrated. But if I can, I want to start with just you served in both of these theaters. You were in Iraq, you were in Afghanistan. I mean, you really know what's going on. What do you think of this Obama strategy, bombing ISIS, arming the Syrian rebels, no ground troops, saying there's not going to be any troops? Based on your experience, what do you think?
Well, you laid it out very well in the intro. The first thing first, you don't tell the enemy what you are or are not going to do, and that's what these generals are coming out and talking about. They're being candid on 2 fronts. One, if you're not going to use ground troops, don't tell them. And 2, if you expect to destroy ISIS, which is a very technical term within the military, there's a certain set of things you have to do, and their belief as military experts, and frankly mine in having served and looking at all the possible contingencies, is that without U.S. boots on the ground at some level, whether special operators forward deployed in some level of combat, or conventional forces, which is something no one's really talking about, but you could be part of the equation. Without that, you're not going to destroy ISIS anytime soon, if at all. This idea of arming the Syrian rebels, I am of mixed minds on that. I understand both sides. I mean, frankly, we're 2 years too late on that. We had an opportunity. Right now, the Syrian rebels are about the 4th most powerful element in Syria. You've got the Assad regime, you've got ISIS, and then you've got al-Nusra Front, and then you've got this shell of a force in the Free Syrian Army. People want to find something, an entity in there that could beat back ISIS rather than siding with Assad. You know, you mentioned Stalin and former alliances. Well, there might need to be a little bit more realpolitik in this particular situation, realizing that Assad, not a good guy, no one wants him to be there, but at the same time, he may in some ways be our best option. It's just sort of like I say that and then I want to whisper because no one wants to say that. But the reality is these are some of the tough decisions that we've got to make at this point because we've dithered, because we haven't done anything, because Iraq is a 4-letter word for this president. He doesn't want to go back there no matter what. We've got bad options at this point.
Well, look, Pete, I agree with you 100%, and you know we haven't been shy. We've been saying it for about 18 months, and at the end of the day, that Bashar Assad should be our ally. And it doesn't matter that what he's done or some of the things that we don't like what he's done. We're in a dangerous world, and stabilization of Syria is in our best interest, and he's the best option to have that. So the whole thing has made no sense from day one. But this administration...
But again, it's the president boxing him, as Robert Gates said, boxing himself into a corner through his rhetoric. He said Bashar al-Assad's got to go, but he was never willing to do what needed to be done in order to usher him out. Same thing, he's saying no ground troops in Iraq, but he's declaring we're going to destroy them. He's asking for a coalition, but no other country is going to commit boots unless we do, and they're only giving us some level of support on the air campaign. That's not what we need. We can do the air campaign if we need to by ourselves. What we would need is ground troops, and there's a great number of questions about the capability and willingness of regional forces to actually commit. So where is this coalition? And we got to give them a little bit of time, but it's not clear it's ever going to develop without real American leadership.
Right, and I think at the end of the day, you know what? I don't want to go so far as say that we're being misled, because maybe the president does and his advisors do really believe that this coalition will come together and there'll be thousands and thousands of troops being supplied by other Arab nations. I don't see it. So if we're not being misled and being sucked into another conflict, then certainly I don't think that they've thought it through. Let me put it that way. Pete, following the House Committee on Veteran Affairs hearing to examine allegations of VA officials tampering with the Office of Inspector General's report on the Phoenix situation, nothing is really happening. We have a new director there. The Senate passed, what was it, 99 to 1 or something, to give this director the power to fire incompetent people or people that doctored the forms, but nothing is happening.
No, and he hasn't used that power yet. So what you're referring to for this hearing at the House Veterans Affairs Committee, they uncovered the fact that the Inspector General, who was supposed to investigate what happened at Phoenix, the wait times and the preventable deaths, effectively changed the version of the it's what was supposed to be an independent report. It was changed by suggestions from VA officials to soften the language to make it look like deaths were not caused by wait times. It didn't. In the report, they covered it up. In the hearing, Jeff Miller and the other members were able to pull it out of the IG to admit that, yes, they did soften the language. So someone inside the VA is covering up for the fact that likely veterans died while waiting on a secret list in Phoenix. If there were ever a moment, John, if there were ever a moment for Robert McDonald, the secretary, to use that power to fire someone, it would be now. Find the person who still is covering up, who still is trying to fudge the numbers and make it look like VA is not culpable in this. That's a person where you could start to use that power. But you're right. We've looked. I mean, Sharon Hellman, the director of the Phoenix VA, still on paid administrative leave, 140 days. We've got something at Concerned Veterans for America, Stop the Clock, and it's a petition to stop the clock, which is running up, of the number of days that Sharon Hellman's still being paid, even though she was in charge of this absolute scandal. So nothing has changed. It is early. We want to give a new secretary the benefit of the doubt, but these big bureaucracies don't change overnight. They've got all the wrong incentives, and while the bill that passed was a good one, it was not a silver bullet, and that's why groups like ours are still working on policies right now behind the scenes that we're going to hope to see to the light of day next Congress that would really, really fundamentally reform the way the VA does business.
So, Pete, are you not troubled by the fact that through all this, people at the VA are still doctoring documents?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and frankly, there's really only one group on the outside kicking and screaming and being a watchdog with VA, and that's Concerned Veterans for America. I mean, everyone else has sort of turned their head and said, okay, well, time to just kind of give VA about a year or two to get their stuff in order. Well, that's not good enough, and a new secretary's got to come in and change that culture and come in by holding somebody, anybody, just one person accountable, and they haven't done that yet, and especially with that new power. In fact, we've seen initial reports that the VA bureaucracy is already building regulations around that new firing power so that it minimizes the how and when it could be used. Because the idea of that legislation was to give the secretary the swift ability to remove anyone who is obviously working in criminal fashion or covering things up, but also just incompetence. And they're already trying to draw fences around it or put up fences to protect employees. It continues to be about protecting employees as opposed to delivering the prompt, efficient care to veterans. And there is a cover-up at the VA still going, and we're trying every day to keep it in the media. And folks like you who give us this opportunity hopefully help us continue to spread that message.
So when are we going to see something from Secretary McDonald?
Well, he's been touring the country. He's been going to town hall meetings. He has announced a road to reform or an internal plan that he's supposed to announce on Veterans Day, November 11th. He is doing some of the right things. At the same time, we do not think he's been forward-leaning or hasn't set enough signals. So much of leadership is signaling. And so just one or two of the right firings would demonstrate that there's a new sheriff in town, that he understands the important mission and the great people at VA that are trying to do things well, but that there are poor performers that have held that whole department back. That I think is such an important part of the balance of earning trust with your staff, this new 330,000 large department that he has that's massive, but more importantly, regaining the trust of veterans who believe the system is rigged against them and not fully serving them. So, I mean, he's doing some of the right things, and we're not here to just go after Bob McDonald. We want him to succeed. At the same time, someone's got to hold his feet to the fire to say, veterans demand some level of accountability, demand something change. There were criminal acts and cover-ups committed. Until we can't just turn the page until we resolve things, and then the systems that allowed those things to happen. That's what we're calling on the secretary to do.
With Pete Hegseth. Pete, you were in Afghanistan. You know exactly what's going on there. Where drawing down there, many people like me say, okay, well, what is going to prevent the same thing from happening in Afghanistan that's just happened in Iraq?
Nothing's going to prevent the same thing from happening. And I say that blunt statement with full knowledge of both those theaters. And as someone I was a senior counterinsurgency instructor in Afghanistan in 2011-2012, charged with studying and understanding the insurgency, the tactics and strategy we're using against it. And I will tell you that as we draw down, and most importantly, as we tell them that we're drawing down and leaving, and tell the population and the Taliban and the Afghan government, everyone is calculating accordingly, and that calculation is to fend for themselves in many ways. And the Taliban already controls much of the countryside. And what they'll start to do is to continue to intimidate, move into the city centers. We saw a recent bombing just near the embassy in Kabul. They're going to start to and continue to attempt to consolidate power. And if America goes down to zero troops or to a very, very minimal amount, as we did in Iraq, unfortunately, my assessment is that Afghanistan will slide in that very same direction. Without a residual American commitment, both diplomatically and militarily, a lot of the gains we've made, which frankly have been fairly minimal in Afghanistan, to be honest. I mean, they've been substantial in what men and women have given and fought for. I don't minimize any of that, but it is in the long term, it's very fragile. And us rushing for the exits and taking their eye, frankly, off the ball, as Obama accused the Bush administration doing in the past, are creating conditions that are not very advantageous to stability in Afghanistan.
It's fair to speculate that with this drawdown and the way we're doing it, by announcing it, tipping our hand, telling the enemy exactly what we're going to do, what the timelines are, and everything else, there is a scenario that says 60 months from today, we could have the Taliban back in control of Afghanistan, and it could be the same scenario we had in 2000.
It could be. Now, what I would say is it is unlikely in my assessment, because I do think, boy, I don't know, I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say that I think the president will learn. He's shown a very good ability to not learn lessons. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go to zero. But I do think there will be some level of residual commitment, which means the Taliban is unlikely to sort of take Kabul and become the de facto government for the country, or become the official government of the country. But what they could become is the de facto ruler of 95% of the country in the countryside, which is a scenario that is possible, where you have a prime minister in Afghanistan who is basically the mayor of Kabul, and that's about, and a couple of other bases, and that's about it, which means you've once again, like you said, created the conditions before 9/11 where an organization like the Taliban can plot and plan, or allow other types of organizations to do that, to do the same thing, like Al-Qaeda and others who still seek haven across the border in the mountainous regions of Pakistan. So we have the opportunity to prevent that type of scenario or welcome it back again. And unfortunately, the policies that we're using right now are more likely to allow the Taliban to expand their influence.
Pete, final question. Turkey. How do we get them involved here?
Oh boy, they are central to so much of this, and especially when you look at the fight with ISIS in Syria and Iraq. It's the free flow of oil from Iraq and Syria that's being sold in the black market to Turkey, and then it is the pipeline of foreign fighters coming through Turkey to Syria. Turkey is a NATO member. I mean, Turkey is. We should be able to put the screws to and come to Turkey and ask them to be a part of this effort. The problem is you've also seen a renewed Islamic streak in the government there that isn't as friendly to sort of Western notions. So it'll take hardline diplomacy. It's going to take a serious commitment to bringing them into the fold in order to so they're the Pakistan equation in Iraq. So Afghanistan has Pakistan, Syria has Turkey. Without Turkey being dealt with, Syria can't fully be addressed either because of the flow of fighters and the way that ISIS is funding itself through oil there. So you've isolated a very, very important country.
Okay, Pete, that's going to be the final word. We really appreciate your being with us today. I thank you for the extra time. Hey, if you want more information, got to go to Concerned Veterans for America. Get off the sidelines, get in the game. All you have to do is sign up, get on their mailing stuff. They have phone banks. They knock on doors. They get involved. They get things done. Here's all you have to do. CV4A.org. CV4A.org. Pete, we appreciate your being with us. Thank you for your service to the country.